All right, let's welcome in our guys, Tim Doyle and the coach, Avery Johnson, joining us here to break this one down. Coach, got to point out your ties to the team here, Alabama. Those guys, they mean a lot to you. Before we dig into this game and break it down, what was it like digesting this one, an intense matchup between these two teams?
Yeah, it was a little bit strange because, three of those players with Alabama, Herb Jones, John Petty, and Alex Reese, they were on our NCAA tournament team several years ago where we upset Virginia Tech as a 9th seed. And then we ended up losing to Villanova, the eventual national champions that particular year. So they had NCAA tournament experience. And then we recruited Jaden Shackelford. We went and we was his first Power 5 offer. And then Jawan Gary, he was headed towards South Carolina. We were able to convince him. So I had really good relationships with 5 players on that team and their families. So it was a little bit weird watching them play in this game tonight, but they played hard. They've had an incredible season. Nothing to really hold their heads down about. To get to the Sweet 16 is a huge accomplishment, but a lot of people had them going to the Final Four and potentially upsetting Gonzaga and playing in the national championship game. So hats off to them. Incredible season. Tough loss against a very resilient, tenacious UCLA Bruins team with Mick Cronin, who basically had 9 lives. And we can get into a little bit more about that later.
We're going to break it all down. Coach, your fingerprints all over that program, but it was not at the free throw line. Want to give you the stat here. 11 of 25 for Alabama. There's your difference in the game, leaving 14 points at the charity stripe. TD, let's go to you next here. Just, big picture, your takeaway from this game. How was it won?
Well, Joe, you just mentioned the free throw shooting. That was atrocious. And you could see a guy like Herb Jones just start to lack confidence. I thought he took an ill-advised 3 in overtime. Oh, the 3, Alabama in this game, 7 of 28. So this was the fear if you had Alabama, like I did in your Final Four. You live by the 3, you die by the 3. Last game against Maryland, they were 16 of 33, he almost scored 100 points. Guys are laughing, they're having fun, they're passing the ball. Now all of a sudden shots aren't going in. Now everybody got tight. Their 3-point shooting, I really believed, affect their free throw shooting. And even though that game went to overtime, first of all, Mick Cronin, what are you thinking? Foul, foul, foul. It's so simple. You're up 3. How many times have we seen, boop, guy makes 1 shot. Instead, you gotta make a free throw, miss a free throw, grab an offensive rebound, score. Look at all the different steps that have to happen, or one guy makes 1 lucky shot, as would happen. Now, Mick ends up keeping his job, but right, Coach, you got a foul in that play.
Look, Tim Doyle, you know quite a bit. You're one of the best analysts on TV right now, right? Not because you're one of my good friends. Cassandra Johnson, who I'm married to for almost 30 years, July 6th, she said the same thing. We got a foul. And, Alabama passed the ball in so easily. Nobody was even guarding the inbounder. They were cross-matched. I don't know what UCLA was doing, but for UCLA to come back and survive, Alex Reese 3-point shot, and really outscore Alabama plus 10 or whatever in overtime was incredible. But then you got to also go back to Alabama. Why was the ball in Herb Jones' hands so much at the end of the game, knowing very well that he was struggling from the free throw line instead of getting the ball in the hands of guys like Shaq or Quinterly or John Petty, who was shooting the ball much better from the line?
Now, everything you guys are telling me, it was Alabama's there for the taking, and we watched it go down, and we watched it slip out of their hands there in overtime. Coach, you alluded to it there for a moment, but taking that heavyweight punch there, the buzzer beater to send us to overtime, and then compose themselves. I mean, it's an 11 seed. It's Pac-12 basketball right now, which rules the world. TD, when you see a UCLA team take that punch, go in overtime, and dominate, that tells you what about this team?
That they're resilient, and it's really been since the jump. You remember that opening night game, the play-in game, 11 versus 11. They were down 9 late in the game to Michigan State. Figured out a way to win, and then they caught a break. Right? It's great when you get Abilene Christian to go to the Sweet 16. But I thought the first possession, Coach, of overtime, Jaquez drives baseline. There's help, but it was an aggressive drive. It was a north and south drive. There's help, kicks it out, wide open three, bang down a shot. You start off 3-0. All of a sudden, you kind of wipe away the mistake of not fouling. I actually live bet this game. Full disclosure, I bet UCLA, even though they lost that momentum, you would think, oh, now Alabama has all the momentum. I thought Alabama's execution was really poor. Mm-hmm. And UCLA was still moving. They were getting the ball down low to Riley. There was balance there. They weren't just standing around. When I was watching Alabama on the offensive end, it was kind of like, Quinterly's doing the quick shoot, scoop shots. Like, there was no rhythm. And that's kind of the fun part of getting in on a game live, especially with someone who has somewhat of a knowledge of the game. You could see those ebbs and flows. Even though that was an amazing shot, I still thought UCLA's execution was really good. And how tough is Jaquez? Let's not forget, Johnny Juzang fouls out. He's their leading scorer. But Jaquez kind of has that old man game. He posts you up. He made a big jumper when it was 4. He stared a guy down at like the 15-foot mark. Jumper right in his eyes. Guys, UCLA scored 23 points in overtime. They were clearly the better team in OT, and one would think because of that shot, Coach, all the momentum would carry Alabama, but instead Mick Cronin and his team, 6 guys in double figures.
Yeah, and also you got to remember to start the second half, Alabama went on an 11-0 run, tied the game. UCLA looked disheveled and rattled. I thought it was probably because they went back to Tiger Campbell being on the ball more than Jules Bernard. Remember, Bernard had an outstanding first half. His size, especially forcing some of the smaller Alabama defenders to switch. But then in the second half, when Alabama went on that run, Bernard was standing in the corner. Campbell was trying to navigate and operate the offense, and they basically came up empty. So give UCLA credit. This game is a game of cycles. It could be a little bit of a roller coaster. UCLA did a little bit better job, 11 for 15 from the free throw line, making their free throws, especially when they counted. And on the Alabama side, not only did they miss a ton of free throws, they missed a ton of 1-and-1s and 0 for 2 or 1 for 2, especially at critical times. So this was a game that was for anybody to take, especially going into overtime, but give the resilient, tough, tenacious UCLA Bruins credit, especially with Johnny Juzang fouling out. They made more plays in overtime.
We will give you them, that is, their credit, and that credit earns them a matchup with Michigan in the Elite Eight. Sort of rarefied air here for UCLA, part of that first 4 matchup, just the second team to make it to the Elite Eight following in VCU's footsteps. They were able to make it to the Final Four. We'll see if they can do so. TD, how about that matchup? You got Michigan, you got UCLA. We saw what Michigan could do earlier in the day to any and all comers. How do you like the way that UCLA matches up with the Wolverines?
Yeah. There comes a point now when you start picking against Michigan like I did against UCLA, against Florida State. It's like a page from Vince Vaughn in Wedding Crashers, right? Like, I'm not that interested with Michigan. Now I'm starting to get interested. Maybe they're not interested in me. Like, do we all just do like the weird hug at the end of the night? Like, I think Michigan's more talented top to bottom. Juzang's great. Jaquez has played outstanding in this tournament. There seems to be like this magic with UCLA right now, but how impressive was Michigan against Florida State? That was never a game. And we expected that length of Florida State, dominate the backboards. It was actually Michigan who dominated Florida State. And now you start looking at the Michigan roster, whether it's Franz Wagner or Hunter Dickinson, they have pros, first round picks. I'm not sure I can say the same thing about UCLA, but there's some magic about that team. I think the spread in that game is probably going to be about 4.5. I would think this is probably going to be a 1 or 2 possession game. I expect a good one, but I think I've learned my lesson. I'm not picking against Michigan anymore.
Hey, go Big Blue, Juwan Howard. Hey, all the way. Final Four, baby. I don't know why my buddy Tim Doyle picked against Big Blue to go to the Final Four. What were you thinking about? You're a professional at this stuff. But I'm going Big Blue all the way. And, I got them as a, 2-1 favorite. Tim loves the horses. They would be 2-1, 1-1 in this game. But I would say that with Michigan, the versatility on the perimeter, Shandy Brown, Brandon Johns Jr., obviously the quarterback, Mike Smith, but Hunter Dickinson, he's the great neutralizer. He's the one guy that nobody has left in the tournament. He can pass, dribble, and shoot. He defends the basket. He rebounds. He's an unbelievable passer, whether it's in a press offensive situation, in the half court. He's basically the Mount Everest of this tournament. Nobody has, even Gonzaga, they do not have Hunter Dickinson. So I'm going all in with my boy Juwan Howard. And but we saw tonight, you can't count out the UCLA Bruins. They may have that it factor, especially if they catch Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines on one of their bad nights.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.